Ladies and gentlemen, welcome here for the final time this season. Myself and Dextron ready to bring you the grand finals here in the Masters Division for South America. And Dex, it is everything on the line for these two teams here today. So one of them is going to move on to EWC, is going to have that South America slot, is going to be able to have an opportunity to go to LAN and go against some of the very best teams throughout the entirety of this world. And I will say right out the gate, because it's worth noting, this might not be the two teams you would have fully have expected to be here. At least wouldn't have expected them to be, you know, the favorites in this situation.
Yeah, I was going to say when you threw to me that let's just address the elephant in the room. Coming into the playoffs, I don't think a lot of people in the South American region, and Hunter, probably me and you, because we did talk about, we really thought it would be the two teams that have been eliminated, Warfist and Elements, the two teams that basically dominated the regular season, just kind of getting knocked out. And throughout this entire playoffs, they just really didn't seem like themselves. Factor X and Leaders, though, formerly Phoenix Rising, they looked like different teams. Factor X, I mean, especially if you watch that winners final that I covered, they looked like the strongest team in this region, beating down a Warfist team that up until that point hadn't lost a series. And I don't think were really challenged that much, but I mean, I think that loss affected them a lot. And Leaders, they were able to beat Elements in the first round of the lower bracket and then beat Warfist right after that, handily, after taking them to 5 maps in the first round, but ended up losing there. So they got their revenge, and now they go up against Factor X here. And Hunter, you have to remember, we covered these two teams in the regular season in a spot where both the teams were fighting for a playoff spot, a lock essentially. Factor X came out top on that one, but Leaders was able to get the win next week over Pumas to put themselves into the playoffs. And like we said, they are now one spot away, or one game away from a spot in that EWC.
Yeah, and it's everything on the line, and I think for Factor X, they're a team that definitely had the stuff to be able to make it to this point, and clearly so by them just going right through the upper bracket. But for Leaders, former Phoenix Rising, going back-to-back, being able to be two of the favorites, it is an astounding way to get here. But at the end of the day, we talk about this constantly. When you get to playoffs, those... everything resets to 0-0 in those standings. It is about what you deliver and what you give right then and there. But we got to start talking about this very first map to get things going away. We do know what first map is going to be. It's going to be Oasis in this situation. Not necessarily a surprise, because Oasis does kind of just end up being one of the more favorable picks.
Yeah, one of our favorite picks across all regions. We started to see it a lot in EMEA. We started to see a lot in NA as well last night, especially. But a lot of teams, they still would maybe pick the Ilios. We saw that one a decent amount. But, I mean, you saw it a lot if you did watch the Masters playoffs being ran on the OWCS channel or OW Esports channel, where a lot of, where you saw, I believe it was Bolskong and OC talking about how this map in general just has every kind of mechanic and every kind of base kind of play style, or not play style, but just every kind of building block to a good Overwatch comp in it here. That's why you see a lot of teams gravitate towards it, because it really comes down to that mechanical play. And hey, a great map to start out on here for these two teams. And Hunter, we have to tell everyone here, no longer a best of 5 grand finals, best of 7. So 4 maps is going to be needed tonight to unlock your spot into EWC.
Yeah, which always creates a very interesting situation, because obviously when we see some of the grassroots stuff that we do, sometimes they do a little first to 2 earlier on in their seasons. It doesn't really give the river teams to have bounce back. First to 3, usually that kind of the medium, it's what most of everybody does, but it's a rare scenario for these squads, because not every team is used to going into a situation and having to play 5, 6, 7 maps in a series, so we get to really see what these teams have deep down when it really matters the most. So I'm excited to see what both these teams are going to be able to kind of pull off in this situation. But I know, at least in terms of Factor X, they have been known to kind of go to at least those map 4 scenarios quite a fair amount. I mean, they were that first team to really take any blood off of Elements, for that matter, a team that at the time might have been the absolute favorite. So I'm curious to see how they want to react. But I mean, going into this one, it really does strike me, because Phoenix Rising is a team we saw a fair amount, but I don't know if we ever got to see them truly push to the limit in a lot of situations.
Yeah, no, we really didn't. Outside of maybe a game against Pumas, I think that one was a really close game. But that was, again, very early on in the season. for them. And I mean, you talked about them being the only one to really draw blood against elements in the regular season. However, that was week 1 coming off of Copa America, where we highlighted a lot that the primarily the squad there for elements was primarily the same squad that played on that Brazilian team that ended up winning Copa America. And they were coming off that. They were really hot. And I mean, with the season 17 patch coming in here a couple weeks ago, I felt like that was the turning point there for this Factor X team. However, I mean, leaders, they're at this point now. They're on a little bit of a hot streak. They've been able to beat the Giants just like Factor X. Hunter, heading into our first map of the night, the bans are Junker Queen and May.
Yeah, not the most common of bans, at least to have this early on, but regardless of that being the case, man, we're having a heck of a lobby right out the gate here, but either way, it is a bit shocking. May is usually that pick that we kind of see banned out sometimes at like a Circle Royale, but this situation is getting used pretty early on, and now I'm wondering what Jadelo is going to be in this situation, because I imagine they're going to TP out and either go to that Tracer we see a lot, or sometimes maybe even the Sojourn.
Yeah, absolutely here, but I mean, just the May ban and the Junker Queen ban is just decently weird, especially for both these two teams. Junker Queen, though, Factor X did play that on Watchpoint Gibraltar of all maps, Hunter, and they played it so well. They completed that map throughout its entirety with just under 4 minutes on the time bank. It was insane to see. So it's not that bad of a ban here coming out, but I like how they're playing this right now. You have Jodelo on this Pharah. You're really banking on Love being able to shut them down and find those angles, but Jodelo's just going to play safe.
Yeah, Jodelo is getting pressured a heck of a lot right now, specifically Love, who just keeps shooting back further and further. Point attempting to flip over right now, but Factor X seemingly having to back out just a little bit here. You want to try to catch somebody in the wrong place at the wrong time. Lots of bodies getting low as Rainy going to go in with the pursuit on Connie. Hoping to find somebody, but for the time being, Romani goes down first, and that means leaders going to strike first blood.
And Web2 will find one before they eventually fall. Jodelo is deciding to go into the Abyss to get a reset here. And yeah, this is kind of what I expected. The Ramacho is really going to struggle into this composition that Leaders is running. The Venture, we're slowly starting to see Venture get a lot more play across all regions for one really good reason. The stall ability, just being able to play so much in the neutral and just use that burrow to annoy anyone on the other team is so good. And them going over to this Orisa really does allow Romani here to play a little bit safer, but Deadeye already out from Petal.
Yeah, it's going to force everybody back momentarily. Connie had to use quite a bit there, but Jodelo gets eliminated pretty quickly. Petal's got to be the one to keep things going. Unfortunately, has to get out with LCS. Unfortunately, that's just not going to happen, so it's another quick reset. And this Leaders team having a pretty hot streak to get things going.
I mean, they've had to beat, like we said, probably the two best teams in the regular season, just like Factor X did, but they've gone through a little bit more trials and tribulations. Map 5 in their first series, Map 4 in their first one in the lower bracket, and another Map 4 series in their lower bracket finals. I mean, this team is riding a little bit of a hot streak here that I feel like we hadn't seen from them all regular season, and they're hitting their stride at the right moment. But right now, Factor X, I mean, you're looking for Petal, you're looking for Romani to find something, but it seems like Leaders, they know who to get rid of first.
They definitely seem to know. Web2, though, gonna go aggressive here. Casino Rush activated, and Connie hoping to find something with the Terror Surge. Not quite there, but Petal gets taken out in that exchange between Love. And once again, things potentially falling apart. Picks coming through very quickly as Rainy Day gonna help clear things away. Now 85% in counting. A retouch is needed desperately here.
Yeah, but look what Leaders are doing here. They're pushing so far up, it's gonna be hard for Factor X even to get back. LCS has beat, and honestly, yeah, this would be what I would say they have to do just to make sure they can get the point and live.
Yeah, living is not on the agenda for Jodelo. Unfortunately, as Deadeye is there, someone else is going to have to force a touch right here. All that power thrown to Romani gets deleted on the spot. Wasn't going to matter. Leader starting out incredibly strong with the 100-0.
I mean, not the start I really expected here. I thought it would be back and forth. I thought we'd get a good idea of how both these teams really wanted to play. But Leaders really forced Factor X here to make changes to their comp, which we've seen throughout this entire playoff run and in the regular season. Factor X is normally very smart with their swaps. It just didn't seem like it worked out for the first time. I feel like that we've seen that. The swaps didn't end up working out for them in hell. I mean, there was only 2 deaths to the side of Leaders that entire round. There was 1 to each of the DPS line there of Love and Rainy Day. I mean, this is the exact start that you really wanted here for leaders. And if you're Factor X, you need to be able to respond here and respond fast. We saw it a lot in that NA Masters tier yesterday, Hunter, where, you know, if you don't have this quick respond, you're basically out of the map already.
I mean, essentially, yeah, this is kind of that one sub-point that feels like it's really hard to see a whole lot of flip. We see it constantly when we go to City Center, and I think University, despite the example we just seen. But Jodello trying to slice and dice here, already have a bit of a trade-out. Love and LCS have gone down respectively for their squads, and everyone's still managing to hang around. Rainy Day getting rid of Wed2, but you love the trade. This plays a little bit more further and further into the favor if you are Factor X, but now it's a 2v1. Rainy Day is just gonna have to wait around as, hey, Jodello, gonna help them take their first fight win.
Yeah, not the cleanest fight win, but if you're Factor X, you just needed something. Really, you honestly just needed something here. No ultimate's gonna be ready just yet coming in this next engagement, so it's gonna be pretty much another dry fight, but the fact that leaders are already here is gonna force Ramani to come out fast, and that's gonna be all the advantage over the leaders since Ramani's not gonna have the time to be set up.
Yeah, speaking of not having time to set up, Rainy Day getting caught up pretty early. You see there's the immediate disengagement from leaders. Pull back a little bit. Connie's still in a really awkward spot and could potentially go down if Factor X decided to go aggressive. But Connie, knowing better, is just going to keep playing around the Mega Health Pack room.
And right now, I mean, if you're Factor X, you're just playing smart at this point. You have all your members alive. Jodello and Ramani are being that front line that you really want them to be. Petal's kind of hanging around the mid line, looking for those shots, maybe to get an early advantage here. Deadeye ready for them here. And you also see Amp Matrix and Terracer not that far away. Deadeye, though, to get be used here just as a zoning tool. If they can find one, it's icing on the cake, and they won't be able to find one.
Petal! Yeah, because Rainy Day gets stunned out of that and couldn't get underground in time. And now once again, gonna try to get some bodies out. Gonna find something with the Terror Surge. Nobody quite going down, but Hot Babe is eventually separated. And once again, going to be a cleanup coming through for Factor X. Now in final fight territory. I mean, the teams have essentially basically flipped roles in the second round.
Yeah, they really have. Ramani, though, investing in that Terror Surge right there does give leaders here a really good advantage coming in this next engagement. With Connie gonna have theirs, you also have Amp Matrix beat, not that far away from Deadeye. Rainy Day, though, this has been a little bit of a struggle for them. I mean, 60% to that Terror Surge, they haven't been able to get that just yet. And Hunter, at this point, if they lose this fight, they might not be able to build up to win this entire round.
They might not be able to. Petal is just getting pig after pig. No, the Ajax. You hate to see it. And Petal is it how clear things are around a non-stop machine. It's just Rainy Day and still Kimmy for a touch, but Dex, it is not happening.
It is not happening.
Oh.
And oh. Well, this is what I expected from this series. Maybe not like how we've seen it back and forth. I thought it'd be a lot quicker back and forth and not, you know, one team dominating, going to the next round, the other team dominating. What side's the coin gonna land on this time? We'll figure that out here. But I feel like Jodello going over to this Genji was just a little bit exactly what Factor X needed. They needed someone to be able to get in that backline or just be able to follow up onto a dive and clean up a target on the other side and still have the ability to get out of dodge. Yeah, you can get that with Tracer, but the Genji just having deflect and then dash not that far after it always seemed to work out for Jodello as they were just always following Ramani and Petal, just cleaning up the damage, finding those picks early on here. Sims for each side here just to TP out. Love going over to the Soj this time. No more Cassidy for the side of leaders.
Yeah, curious how that's going to work out. I think the Sojourner could work pretty excellently from what we have been able to see Love in the past. I think it's been relatively effective over the stretch of time. But again, this is a Factor X squad that realizes how they are able to play against leaders pretty quickly, if I might add. But we see already Love getting the effectiveness that they need, getting rid of Petal, who is a definite menace in that second round. Bakani does have to mind their space just a little bit, gets low, eventually going to be forced to have to be cleansed out there, but Wed2 pretty much just gets decimated in the back line, and while Rainy Day will die for it, that'll essentially secure them the first fight.
Gets in the first point fight, or gets in the first point, gets in the first fight win. But I mean, you're still able to have 2-3 members of Factor X just back out, but I like what we're seeing here from leaders, playing a little bit aggressively here. They know that Ramani's not back yet, so they don't really have to worry about anything just yet. You have both your supports there to heal Connie and get them out of dodge like they did right here. Now, though, for Factor X, I mean, you're looking for something here early on. Love's playing dangerously, and oh, Jodello almost could have had them there if they found that slash, just missed on it.
Exactly, Petal gets really low for a moment. You see Connie just constantly trying to push bodies out, and this fight is over forward. It has even begun, ladies and gentlemen. Jodello, Ramani, not going to get out, unfortunately, and LCS going to try to help get their Genji out. Looks like they should be able to do so, but Again, it just feels like how round 1 started.
So far, the coin is landing on the side of leaders of who's going to be the more dominant team this one. And I mean, it all kind of comes down to how Rainy Day is playing. They're kind of playing free in the back line, and they're just using that drill dash to really push members of Factor X back into their entire team. And that's what you normally want to see from a Lucio, but having it on the bencher just makes it so much stronger for you. Romani, though, going over to the Diva here. I like this, but you really need to find the value fast, as Rainy Day already in that back line.
Yeah, and Connie is just going to clean up yet again after Romani ends up being knocked out of mech here. This could be a brutal stagger, and honestly, they just have to go jump off. It's not worth doing anything else. Got to take the reset. Got to set up for one final fight.
I mean, good thing is with this final fight, especially because leaders invested 2 ultimates into that last engagement, you're going to be able to come in and have that ult advantage, but you're going to probably have to end up dumping all 4 just to really potentially even just win a fight. Even if you don't win the fight, just force the point flip. I feel like this leaders team I've seen in the past, they understand when they just need to back out of an engagement so they can quickly re-engage back in. And if you see 4 ultimates come out from the other side, you might just want to turn around and walk away for a moment.
Yeah, because you won't really get punished too hard for doing that, as Deadeye gonna come through. Hot Babe gets incredibly low, but nothing quite from that. Beat has been activated by Steel Kiwis. Are trying to run down Webjupe and Petal, getting desperately low, and now Dodella hoping to bring it back with this Dragon Blade. Rainy Day ends up being the very first casualty. Connie having to use everything to try to sustain, but eventually everybody going to close in. And this is looking like it should realistically be a fight when coming up online, but even as the fight goes away, Romani does get knocked out of the mech and dies. Actually, that's kind of better if they die, quite honestly.
Yeah, I mean, they chased Love there, who got hit by a car. Romani followed them. But I mean, right now, like I said, you got all 4 ultimates out there from Factor X. If you're leaders, you feel very confident coming this next engagement. You have Overclock, you have Tectonic Shock, you're gonna have Amp Matrix. The only thing that Factor X could have is Romani's bomb, but because of that late death, you're gonna see a really quick engagement here from leaders.
And Judello is down just like that. No opus really at the extender right now. They're gonna dump the double DPS also try to close something out, and now you're gonna see Factor X simply probably give up this initial flip. They're gonna touch once more after that, but they gotta keep staggering on 1 at a time, but there's just too many ultimates on the board. Petal coming back in with the data. Unfortunately, it's not gonna find a whole lot, but still, they're trading back final blows. This could still genuinely go either way right now. It's all about Romani trying to stay in that mech, desperately close to getting a bomb ready to go, and they're gonna get knocked out momentarily. But Judello just needs to stay alive. Romani needs to be able to remech. The success comes on both sides, but now they need to come together, try to find some bodies, and hang around on this point.
I mean, you have Romani here, you have Petal Judello back. That support line for Factor X, so they need to get here soon. Romani out of mech. Hunter, that could be the final nail in this, or the start of the final nail in this coffin here for this map.
I think it is. This might just be staggers at this point. You're trying to come back with your Petal. Unfortunately, they just aren't able to keep any bodies on, so leaders starting strong here. Gonna go up with the first map. 2-1 here on Oasis, but at the end of the day, seeing this first map, it goes to show the strengths of both of these squads here, and that leaders has come into today with all the momentum they got in that lower bracket.
Yeah, and you have to remember the bans here for this first map. Junker Queen and May. Junker Queen is definitely a tank that I've seen Factor X play and play very well. We haven't necessarily seen them play Jungle Queen on Control. They've normally played on other maps, but I mean, I feel like the Jungle Queen could have actually done a decent amount there for Factor X. Leaders, though, I mean, the May ban, they had the May banned out against them. I feel like those are just 2 very awkward bans there. I mean, yeah, Jungle Queen, like I said, has been played by Factor X. I imagine the May has been played by leaders, but just in general, I feel like you don't normally see those 2 heroes come out on Control. However, I mean, it really worked out well here for leaders and Factor X. It seemed like that DPS line didn't necessarily care that May was banned, because they still had an incredible round. As I try to get the scoreboard up here, I mean, Love 26 elims, the most damage in the lobby as well. Actually, no, second most damage behind Petal, but like, they were doing everything.
Yeah, I mean, they really were. Petal has kind of, ever since joining this Factor X squad in that midseason, has been a really dominant force, but Love especially had an amazing first map, as you have said. I mean, only going down 6 times, which I mean, in comparison to how things went for other people within this series, Romani unfortunately going down 10 times. Yeah. I mean, in this game of Overwatch, the tank going down 10 times, It's kind of a crux, unfortunately, for what makes a lot of these fights difficult. If your diva gets knocked out of mech super early on, if you want to pull that fight, you are forced to use ultimates. You don't get a choice in that situation. Either someone completely pops off, or you have to invest to force a fight to win.
Yeah, and I mean, it was just, I mean, we saw that from both teams. They were really building up to ultimates slowly. I mean, especially with when we had those first 2 points being dominant points for both sides there. I mean, you remember the second point of Gardens, just how long it really took the venture there for leaders to build up to their own ultimate. They never got it. I think they got it about 90%, which shows you how much of a struggle they really had that round. And you can go back to Factor X on that first point. Some of them were building up to their first ultimate just as that final fight was starting. And I mean, it didn't necessarily help them out. Just pressure being applied here early on as leaders. They take the early advantage here. Now 3 maps away, or 3 map victories away from a spot in that EWC tournament. However, map 2, I didn't catch it. Once we know, once we know, we will tell you.
Yeah, there is a very small possibility that we might still have some of the issues that we had previously. I don't know whether or not that is the case, but normally these teams don't make the most swaps. So I'm curious what is taking a minute.
Bert is there for Factor X. We have seen them come in times for Romani. So that is a potential we could see. However, in the couple times we've seen this leaders team, or formerly Phoenix Rising, we didn't necessarily, I believe, see them make a lot of swaps, but they definitely have those 2 subs there. So if they feel like they need to make one here going into our second map, they have that possibility too here.
Yeah, 100%. And yeah, it is definitely a bugged lobby. I could tell right now.
I could tell already as
well. We know at least what the next map is, but the problem is, ladies and gentlemen, is that the bans for the first map have basically been copy and pasted over, which obviously, as you might assume, is not what we're going for in this situation. So we're going to have to probably do what ended up happening last time, which is custom lobbies. Unless there's enough FACEIT staff sitting by, you never know, but we're probably going to be a minute until we actually get into this next map.
Yeah, I mean, they're even talking about it, that the admins aren't necessarily going to be focusing on this one here tonight, and that it makes some sense considering NA is about to get going here, so they want to make sure everyone's ready there. So we're probably going to end up waiting for our own custom lobby to get made here. Servos, though, is currently listed as the second map of the night here, and if you're Factor X, I'm trying to think who you ban out. Here, you might honestly try to ban out the Orisa just to give yourself some kind of momentum going into this one, because it really did seem like the Orisa there for Connie was just a little bit too much for you to get around a lot of times.
Yeah, that's what it really has felt like, and Connie has had a certain level of inconsistency from what we have seen, but we know they can do a lot of great things on that Orisa when given the opportunity, and hey, this is the day to wake up and have that consistency, because with the strain that they have had in that lower bracket, clearly they have been able to pull it off and have been able to show it in a lot of capacities. But obviously, taking this extra couple of minutes here, it kind of lets things kind of slow down for a minute, and realistically, that should benefit a team like Factor X that can be like, all right, didn't really go the way we wanted that first map. We had some good points. Let's focus in on those and keep trying to run this down and do what we do best. And honestly, some of the things they do best, you know, is Romani on that tank. It is Petal on that Cassidy, and WebTube, who has been a very consistent force in that support category. So it's all about just bringing those forces together and just refocusing and adapting as the series keeps going on.
Yeah, and one thing you really have to start considering here, especially for both these teams, is the nerves. I mean, yeah, it's a grand finals for this season, and that's always gonna have some nerves attached to it, no matter what level you're playing at. But Hunter, this one has a little bit more stakes added into it. Like we've mentioned a couple times, winner of this one goes to EWC. Yeah. I mean, it's huge for the South American region to have that spot in EWC, and for these two teams, I mean, we already mentioned it. Coming into the playoffs, me and you really didn't expect to see them at this point, but they have really come alive here at the right time. But hey, I was absolutely right. The Orisa going to be banned out here by Factor X. On the other side, leaders banning out Juno. I think these are the right bans. I really do. However, even though we didn't see Juno a lot or at all there from Factor X on that first point and first map, Juno does find a decent amount of value on this map in particular, just because of how slow Orbital Ray moves. If you put it onto the right spot on point during any fight, it will just slowly go across it, and the only thing that the team that's getting that ultimate thrown on them can do is either try to kite it out or just accept that you're dying. But right now, Romani on this Junk Queen, it can't be banned out anymore. That's the questionable thing with this. They looked almost unstoppable playing this Junk Queen yesterday. It's gonna be really fun, in my opinion, to see how Leaders deals with it, because it just looked like they were playing a completely different game on Watchpoint. On Watchpoint Gibraltar.
That's what it really felt like, but we have seen Romani run this queen quite a fair amount, to be honest. I think they've had a lot of success regarding it. The question is how well it's going to work in this Ramattra composition, where that Ramattra has the ability to kind of just bulldoze and stay through a lot of damage. A Petal up on that Ashe, not a character where you see them on very typically, but seems to have a level of success as Hotbabe has gone down, and Connie is kind of forced to back out further and further, as they're going to have a little bit of a weird trade out, quite honestly, here, with Jodello going down, but point's still going to go to Factor X to start out.
Yeah, Jodello kind of got put in no man's land. They dove in trying to follow Connie. Then they got the Vortex thrown on them as they tried to escape, used up their entire deflect, and then just got beamed to death by Love. However, I mean, you see both heroes that are banned out in map 1 showing up here in map 2. That kind of shows you how strong these two heroes are for each of these teams. Romani off to a good start on the Junk Queen, and Jodello not off to a good start on the Genji.
Yeah, I wouldn't say so, but Romani does get the better of their counterpart tank, but a reset here just isn't going to happen, and now it's a question of whether or not you want to re-engage if you are Factor X, and if you get Love, I mean, I think you go for it.
Yeah, I think you go for it. You sub Romani here. Connie's not going to be back for a while, and this might be a free point flip, but Rainy Day going to try to stall out here. Not that far away from Blizzard, but I don't think they'll be able to build up to it in time.
No, but you got to try to get rid of them here. Unfortunately, the Carnage swing not going to really hit. Hotbabe is down, though, so re-engaging, while possible, is not going to last long at all. Rainy Day is trying to play hide-and-go seek, but Romani has found them, as 52% now going to be drawing on the board, as one fight away from Factor X taking the first point.
And I like Factor X playing a little bit aggressively here. They're going to safely fall back, but I just like them pressuring out a little bit there. Just to get some damage, just to potentially slow down, maybe a quick re-engage. Even though you found some late picks there. Final fight territory, you're going to see, I feel like a lot of ultimate will be thrown out here. Rainy Day's Blizzard has to find some value here, whether it be slowing down Romani after they use this Rampage once they get it, but Katsuno's out here first.
Yeah, and you see everything going forth. Romani going to go through the moment everybody was out. B gets activated. This is a high-intensity fight to get things started, but LCS going to invest the B here to try to keep things alive, and with still keeping going down, that might be exactly what we needed, but we see the struggles of Jodello throughout the entirety of this first round as Love going to go in the back, contemplating popping out that all right now, but is simply going to hold on to it, realizing this fight is essentially done already, just a little bit more stall from Hotbabe. Factor X going to take the first point here, finally striking that first blood.
And hey, they needed this. I mean, last map was a little bit of a struggle for them outside of Gardens, but they just needed to get off to a good start here. However, you talked about the struggles for Jodello. Let me just put it like this. There's been 4 deaths on the side of Factor X. Jodello's 3 of them. They have Blade ready to go here and no beat on the other side. The only thing that you could potentially see is maybe that Ant Matrix be used here by Hotbabe just to try to force Jodello into a spot where they kind of just have to hide and wait for it to go away, but Leader's in a really good spot.
Ooh, Jodello's gonna try to find something with the Blade, and hey, you're waiting for that success to come through. It seems to be doing so now. Has gotten rid of 2, and Connie invests that Annihilation, and while they might get out with their life, they will not claim the point.
And honestly, that Blade from Jodello finding 1, 2 picks, but 3 ultimates, that's insane value. It truly is. Ant Matrix, Annihilation, Love invested overclock into that one. But Rainy Day coming back out on the bencher, you remember how much of a problem they had with it last map? I like this swap here, especially as you already see him just harassing Petal.
Yeah, that's a little insane here, as they're going to be trading back and forth, but it doesn't really stop the fact that Leaders is going to get this flip. And Factor X, again, just have to do a bit of a partial reset and maybe catch still Kiwi, who's in a bit of a weird spot.
A free point flip, though. I mean, there were 2 members of Factor X that were around the point that could have potentially gone onto it and contested it, but they just decided to give it up for free. And I mean, Hunter, even if Factor X comes back in and wins a quick team fight here, you're not going to have the lead. I mean, it's a little bit of a costly mistake, I feel like, not to contest it.
It really is, but Consumer Rush has been activated. Connie only has so much block. You don't really have the support ultimates from leaders to keep them alive. So this flip should seemingly come through right here. Just a little bit more care from still Kiwi to stall out the point. We'll get it up to 57% here, but again, 1-5 territory for Factor X. They have some amazing ultimates as well to get this going.
They have some amazing ultimates, but the only thing that you see ready to go here at very early on for leaders is going to be a Deadeye. They're not that far away from Beat, Amp, and Terra Shirt, or Tectonic Shock.
Yes.
But right now, I mean, if you get this Rampage out from Amani on to, 4 or 5, the only person that can really cleanse themselves of it immediately is Rainy Day.
I mean, exactly. Right now, Romani going to go through is going to catch on to 4 bodies. Still Kiwi doesn't quite have it online. Love not going to find anything. And still Kiwi now has the beat online, but it would be a risk to invest a ton of ultimates here. But LCS has gone down. No beat available. Rainy Day has got rid of 3. Romani in bad shape. Going to be taken down momentarily, but honestly just somehow stays alive. But I don't think it's going to matter a whole lot. It is just Petal and Romani hanging around, trying to survive. Petal goes down, and Romani realizes 99% on the board. Just got to build some ultimate. As LCS comes in with the beat now instead. And that is a grievous misuse.
That is, yeah, that's a huge mistake. 57%, you could have allowed Romani to die there. You still would have had one more attempt at it with a quick regroup, but now you might have just lost this point with that play right there, especially when you look at leaders Beat and Annihilation here. At this point, Hunter, you're just going to try to force a fight on this point to try to get rid of those 2 ultimates if you're Factor X, but you already lose Jodello as their struggles continue.
And now you're going to see Factor X back out. They realize this fight is not going to be winnable right here. You just got to try to keep Romani alive, but Connie hitting those punches consistently means there might be a full cleanup here, but it is 1-1 now. Needs to be a quick reset. In the way this next fight goes, at least on the side, actually on both sides, it can end up being a pretty heavily invested fight.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like if you're leaders, you have the advantage early on. If you have Annihilation, Beat, you're going to have Amp pretty soon. The only thing that could come up here relatively quickly for Factor X is a Blade and a Kitsune Rush, which, I mean, could definitely win you a fight on its own. I mean, we saw Jodello's Blade basically find 2 picks and get rid of 3 ultimates last time they had it. You're almost looking for the same value this time around. However, that Annihilation and Beat combo might just be a little bit too much for a single Blade to deal with.
Yeah, well, we're going to see that's going to be the case. Very early use over here of that Amp Matrix, but it should secure them this first touch here on the point, no matter what. As, yeah, Factor X are simply going to respect it, realizing, hey, we need a cleaner fight than that. Cleaner Rush can be used directly afterward. Love going to go ahead with that. Deadeye Deflect is ready to go, and it's going to catch on to the worst person it could have ever caught onto, and it's going to work out beautifully for them, and now everybody going to stay alive, regroup, as again, Factor X had a good start, but now that struggle's beginning to come back a bit.
Your Factor X, so you're going to have 3 ultimates coming in this next one. However, same thing could be said here for leaders, as they're going to have some good sustained ultimates, and Petal investing Bob early.
Yeah, definitely, and Rainy also investing, unfortunately gets nothing out of it, and now you're going to see leaders back out in the situation, go back to the point, and will end up being essentially a 4v4 fight, as both teams are kind of waiting a moment to regroup.
I mean, but if you're Factor X, you have to take this advantage you have here. You have to run fast. LCS not that far away from a beat, so you're really looking to get out this Annihilation from the other side and then just beat it, use the beat from LCS just to clean up the fight.
Yeah, catches onto a bunch of bodies. Connie is low as Beat's been thrown in by LCS, and now Connie is going to have free reign momentarily to let this Annihilation go, but Jodello's popping off with the Blade. Help get rid of one. Romani slicing them away, and Connie going to choose to not invest the ult. Ends up being the right decision in my mind. You play for this next fight where now there's nothing that can stop Connie, at least ultimate-wise, to just pop off this Annihilation and run in.
Yeah, Annihilation's free now. Also, Hot Babe gonna have their own amp. I mean, you played that fight really smart there. If you're leaders, you just let Factor X do whatever they want and throw out ultimates, find picks. You got the point cap. You're already up to 99%, so you have 1-2 fights guaranteed here, no matter what. And you're okay necessarily losing that fight because of the heavy ult investment that we saw there for Factor X.
Yeah. Good time right there on the cleanse, and now Connie sees the opportunity. He's going to split them apart. Deadeye being used. Love getting it for the second time on this point. Gets rid of Wet Tube, and unfortunately for Factor X, there's just no coming back from the situation. It's going to be 2-1 here momentarily. Just a little bit more fight back from Romani. Unfortunately, just doesn't have the tools. Will get taken out, and now it's map point coming online for Fleeters.
Yeah, the good start that Factor X had is slowly just dissipated. And I don't want to point to a singular moment in this map being the difference here, but I feel like that LCS beat on that second point just to keep Romani alive is really hurting them. Right now. They hold on that one. Like I said, they were definitely guaranteed another retouch there, and you had your whole team with a beat. It would have been a little bit of a different fight. I don't know if FACEIT would have won, but now you're playing from behind. You're down to map point here now for leaders, and leaders Annihilation and Tectonic Shock ready. The only thing you're going to have is Bob and Kitsune Rush here, and Bob already out on point.
Yeah, and they just run down Hot Babe over here, trying to clear them away. They end up trading out, which honestly, you're honestly fine with. And Radiate comes through and is clearing things away, has gotten so much value out of this Tectonic Shot. And once again, stuffed down is FACEIT. I mean, leaders, I mean, Rainy Day has already had themselves a time on this venture.
They really have. I mean, the venture's been almost unstoppable for them. FACEIT is struggling into it mightily. And we saw it a lot on the first map, and now that backline, especially Petal, who now goes over to the Soch here, has just struggled because Ash only has to coach them and get them out of dodge. Now they're on to, like I said, the Soch. They're a little bit more mobile. Jordella now going over to the Tracer as well. I mean, you see the swaps coming out here, but it's a little bit too late, but they find Rainy Day out early on. That might be the right pick.
Yeah, it is the first step, but you got to try to get nobody caught with this data. Everyone's going to be in no man's land. You cannot let Romani get hit. WebTube gonna take the bullet instead, but we're still trading out as Connie wants to try to invest in this thing right here and now. We see the boop around from there. Only Connie and still Kiwi get caught, but it's probably going to be enough at this point as Connie's simply going to keep blocking out for as long as they possibly can, unfortunately. He's going to eventually fall, only going to give up that 77%. That's still one fight territory as FACEIT got to keep this going somehow.
And a huge late pick, fighting Hot Babe right there. I mean, they were able to kind of just dance around the outside of that point where they're keeping themselves up. Rainy Day, I felt like they should have been able to get a touch there. They were hanging around the edge of the point, but just decided not to go for the contest until it was a moment too late. FACEIT, though, 2 ultimates ready to go here. Pulse Bomb and Beat, that should be able to get you through the ultimates that you see leaders have here. Their own Beat and their own Amp Matrix. I mean, Pulse Bomb, honestly, someone like Silky here early on, find that one pick here, and you just go from there. You just need to have the advantage when a team fight really does break out here.
I mean, yeah, 100% here. As 60% and counting, this fight means absolutely everything to FACEIT. Pulse Bomb goes in. It's going to miss entirely. It's going to get rid of the Immortality Field, though, and now it's going to off the ability to go in, but we're trading things out with the Sound Barrier's Love. I think I booped off the point right there.
They did.
And now it's a rough scenario as FACEIT seemingly should have this locked in, but you still have Rainy Day hanging around. Connie is big chilling on the point here. Eventually has to go in with that Nemesis point to try to find something, but unfortunately all they can do is just block all that damage as FACEIT inevitably going to take this over and bring this to a 5th and final point.
Count out just yet. Some of leaders falling teammates are back here. Still Kiwi. Love is here now. WebTube and Jordella are the only ones here. Romani's slowly getting back, but you need to find one of these 2 members out right now for leaders if you're FACEIT, just to give you an advantage and really force Connie to just kind of fall back. But no, they're engaging into it, especially with these touches coming in. Connie, though, I mean, they're far away from their Annihilation. I think this should still go FACEIT's way. Yeah, Romani needs to be careful. You do not want to have to invest if you don't have to right now, and luckily they don't have to. Rainy Day going to go in, try to make this happen. Honestly, I like the fact that they came back and tried to stall this out and nearly made me eat my own words, but at the end of the day, it's not going to result in anything as 0.5 indeed will come online, and unfortunately, leaders used a lot to try to end that. They did. They used both their DPS ultimates there. And I really think they're just trying to force out ultimates from the other side. Love now going over to the caster here for our final point. Rainy Day used Tectonic Shock, and that's a little bit of a head scratcher to me. But hey, if you would have found a pick, you don't know what would have happened. However, Kitsune Rush and Rampage ready to go here. LCS not that far away from Beat. You're in a good spot here. You might need to invest those ultimates here though early on because you've already lost Petal. Yeah, but we see the Rainy Day assassination come through. Romani gonna catch onto 2 bodies right now. A nice boop! It's gonna take them off the edge, and now FACEIT take the advantage in this fight. We'll have it essentially locked in as Connie does have an ult to the name, but again, gonna have to hold on to it as Petal makes it back into the fight. Unfortunately for them, or actually, I would say fortunately, wasn't needed. Yeah, it wasn't needed. And like I said, those 2 ultimates that FACEIT had, they needed to use in the moment they lost Petal, and they used them really well. Continuous coming out from WebTube allowed Romani to play a little bit more aggressively with the Carnage Axe and with just using that shotgun. Then Rampage came out and cleaned up fight. Good boobs coming out from LCS here as of late. Getting a couple environmental kills, it helps them out a lot, but now they're walking into a Beat, an Amp Matrix, and Annihilation on the other side. And the only thing you have ready to go here early on, Hunter, is a Beat. This seems like a fight that FACEIT might just have to take for staggering purposes.
Yeah, and you see they're going to back out, try to do a rotation here, and they can tell the rotation comes through because everybody just goes directly back to the point. And now I'm curious how LCS wants to try to use their beat coming up here, because you don't want to use it too early. You want to hold on for this annihilation, but that's not going to be the case, as they're going to be traded out right here. Connie now has a much better path. If they simply want to go in and hit that annihilation, Dexter's not much in the way to be able to stop them. So Petal has to try to find something with this overclock. Connie getting super low, has to pop the annihilation. They're out of effective range. That might be worst case scenario for them in that situation, as Connie getting super low, eventually going to be dropping. And what should have felt like you would have really had to have messed up to lose this fight, unfortunately, everything goes the way of Factor X.
Yeah, and Factor X, they put that perfectly. They just played around the point there that entire time we talked about. They were kiting out the Amp Matrix, then they kited out Annihilation. Deadeye coming out for Love, they tried to hide him there, but I felt like Factor X was kind of up on their game there. They understood Love was really looking for that here. Swap though coming out now from Leaders here, going into what could be final fight, but you find Romani, and the Rampage is gone!
Rampage is gone, but Connie's also gone, so now it is just on the back of everybody in Love decides, nah, we're done here, buddy. We're closing this one out. Rainy Day does get caught with the mace somehow, and now it is just one by to hang around. Connie realizes the fight is fine, swap momentarily, but ends up going back to the Ramatra.
Romani, okay, yeah, they're teasing the Doomfist there for a moment, and I mean, that Annihilation, or that Rampage from Romani, you really wanted that to be the sealer here, but losing them right as they popped it hurt them. However, Jodell fighting Hot Babe here, you have to go fast now. If you're Factor X, you have a one-man advantage and a one ultimate advantage here. You need to find Love, though.
Yeah, but Love is not getting found, and unfortunately, Factor X is hard as they are trying here. Petal trying to bring it back. Went to an LCS hanging around to try to get touches over and over again. Petal, though, is almost single-handedly trying to bring this one back around as Gonra 2 needs to try to find a third one, though. And unfortunately, everyone is falling apart around them. Romani trying to make it back for the touch, but a beat might just be sealing this point away as they're trying to desperately get touch after touch. It is just not happening, though, as Leaders kind of move up 2-0. Clearly a lot of fight back from Factor X, but honestly, some really critical mistakes in there.
Yeah, critical mistakes. I mean, especially going into that final point, I thought Factor X had all the momentum going in their favor. It's just this series for Factor X has just been the mistakes. And that's a weird thing to say, because even though in the couple series we catched them early on in the season where they ended up losing, they didn't lose because of mistakes. They just lost because they were getting outplayed, and right now the mistakes are absolutely killing this squad as Leaders now. I mean, they're up 2-0 in this series, and we in every other series so far, we would be talking about Leaders one map away from victory. They're halfway there now. Still have 2 more to go, but finding themselves up 2-0 has to take a lot of pressure off them here, and that pressure that you're taking off of Leaders, now you're adding that on to Factor X here, who it seems like, I feel like those nerves are there for them. I feel like they really are. Leaders got rid of it with that map 1 victory. Factor X with that map 1 loss, now map 2 loss. Those nerves might just end up being their downfall.
Yeah, and it's an unfortunate situation because we are a couple of fights away from this being true of the other direction, quite honestly. Like, it's a scenario where Factor X is just having these really unfortunate moments. Whether it's the fact that you are getting caught out early, there's quite a couple of times where Jodello was getting caught out early by Rainy Day, and you had scenarios where Factor X had to go into these 4v5 engagements because Rainy Day being on that venture. I mean, we've seen the venture. We literally saw it yesterday in EMEA and NA of a venture just being able to cause havoc in the backline, keep finding assassinations. So now this is where Factor X, I mean, this is the map coming up here that they need to be able to do it, because if they don't, it's really hard to assume they're going to have the ability to pull it back in this scenario, because once you get into that 3-0 scenario and you try to pull back the reverse sweep, Leaders, they get to choose every map. They get to choose every first ban. It is completely in their control how to dictate things, and the ability to pull that back is astounding to do.
It really is, especially when you consider it like this. Factor X, they chose the first 2 maps. They were the higher seed coming from winners finals, so they got to pick what our map 1 was going to be. They didn't get to pick map 2 because Leaders won map 1, and now they're picking map 3. I mean, you have to win one of these. You really do, because like you said, I feel like it's a little bit insurmountable to have that reverse sweep potentially come up here right now, especially with how Leaders have been playing this entire playoff run. I mean, they were 1 map win away against Warface in that first round to being in the winners finals against Factor X. And Factor X, I mean, in that winners final against Warfist, they gave me all the confidence in the world that they look like the best team in this region. Leaders now, they look like the best team. They have everything down pat. You have an annoying backline presence with that venture. And the tank play is still really good, even with the Orisa there being banned out. Connie just picked up the Ramatra and just played it like a charm. It seemed like it was no big difference.
Yeah, that's really what it felt like in the situation right here. And for leaders, that's an excellent adjustment on their part to be able to kind of just make that Ramatra work. So now I wonder if Factor X end up worrying about that Ramatra further down the line if we enter back into a brawl scenario. Because if we go to something like Runasapi, the Queen could very much come back online, and Ramatra gets a ton of value on that map too. So that is a potential ban type there. But if you have the ability to ban first in that situation, obviously you can also go down the route of protecting if need be. But obviously it's something we're just going to have to figure out right now is, once again, it's going to take that extra few minutes in between each map. But to be honest, I mean, I'm fine with that, you know? Give it a little room to breathe, figure out these teams a little bit more, because while we had a long night last night, I don't necessarily want a super quick one here today. I feel like it wouldn't be right for everything that we've seen.
It wouldn't be. It really wouldn't. But I gotta say this: these long breaks between maps, while you would normally think it would be a benefit to the team that lost, I think it's actually could hurt Factor X here. They're gonna start overthinking stuff. I really think they're gonna start maybe trying to change their play style and just think that, you know, these mistakes they have been making, while they are killing them, they aren't necessarily series enders yet. If you have such a long break right here, I feel like Factor X will just get in their own head and maybe force themselves to change up something that really isn't broken. You just need to fix one or two small things and you could be on top in this series. But leaders, you're loving this break. You're gonna be sitting there talking about everything that happened in those first two maps. You could look at the points where you really struggled, because there were struggles for leaders in these first two maps, but they've been able to overcome them pretty fast. Then that lets me know that these teams, they are ready to, or at least leaders, they're ready to make those quick changes. Looks like our third map of the night will be Circuit Royale. And we have our bans. No Sim, no BAP.
No Sim, no BAP at the end of the day. You know what? I don't mind it in the situation right here. By the way, just as talk on live, did you get invited to the lobby? Are you there, good sir?
I did not. It is on holds though.
Okay, just making sure. All right. Then we're all bueno over here. But
we're all good for the moment.
For the moment, yeah, it's all, you know, it's all something that we just have to kind of work with and just see what's gonna happen. But either way, Dex, I mean, one thing we can do really quick, while we still have a minute of time standing by, is we can look at what we just had stats-wise during that last map, because I think overall extremely impressive. I mean, Romani, we had this conversation a lot with FACEIT last night, where there were some stats that, hey, looked like, hey, Factor X, the way the stats look, you would think they were the ones that won this whole thing. I mean, Jodello got to 40 elims, Romani got to 43. The closest anybody was to that was Connie and Love, who ended up going to just 28. But yet, Leaders is the team that came out on top.
I think you're overlooking one more person there when it comes to elims. That's LCS, 34 on the Lucio.
Insane.
I mean, you get that type of performance out of a Lucio in any rank, in any map, you normally would think that would be a win for them. I'm also being told right now by LCS that this series is now going to be going over to custom lobbies because the problem will continue to persist. So, Hunter, I will invite you here in a moment.
Perfect. I love to see it. You got the South America connections. We love to see it here. As I do see a big old invite above my screen. We love to see it. Here we go.
Hey, gotta love LCS, man. Great person. Great
Fantastic,
dude. Really
fantastic.
great dude.
Yeah.
But right now, I mean, Hunter, let me ask you this. What does this Factor X team, what does this Factor X team need to do here? I mean, we've seen them enough throughout the regular season and in the playoffs here. What mistakes are they making? Because they are making slight, small mistakes, but in your eyes, what's the problem here for them?
I think one of the biggest issue is that they are getting split up in a lot of these fights. Normally, when you are running something like the Drunken Queen comp, which I have another invite coming through, and I assume we're just going to take that, normally you play it something kind of like a death ball. In this situation, you want to have 4 or 5 stacked on top of each other. Maybe the exception is something like a Tracer or like a Venture, but it feels like they need to commit more to an actual death ball and go in fully as one, because you'll have a scenario where, yes, like, Romani will be together with LCS pushing in, but it feels like you really need that full force behind you, and maybe in later maps, you could bring out something like that May and simply wall them off, which, because with the Circle Route coming up, that's something we have seen a lot, is the May walling things off and kind of forcing tanks to use all their abilities just to be able to survive. But, I mean, we talked about the bans already in this situation. It's just not... Honestly, I don't blame it. I don't blame them for going that route with it at all.
I don't blame them either. But you have to remember, May was already banned out once by Factor X back on the first map.
Yes.
So you aren't going to see that here. I don't think they wanted to use another tank ban at the moment. So I think it's probably them making that Baptiste ban. I really do. The Sim ban coming out from leaders, though, I mean, we have seen Sim be played a little bit by Factor X, especially in the winners final when they went to Watchpoint Gibraltar. They played Sim, really just get TP'd around, TP the tank around of Romani on that Junk Queen. But it's gonna be really interesting to see what Factor X comes out with here. I mean, Ramatra's still on the table, but you just saw Connie play an incredible Ramatra that last map, and we've seen Romani play Ramatra in the past and have a lot of success, but with the level that Connie's playing at the moment, I feel like unless you're getting a lot of help from your DPS line, you're going to struggle a little bit. And that's one thing, at least at the start of that round, that the start of last map on Surabasa that we talked about, one big problem, Jodello, I think, had 6 deaths after the first 2 points. Granted, they only died 12 more times the rest of that map, so they did play a little bit smarter.
Yeah.
But that struggle from Jodello to start off that last map, I feel like did hurt them, even though after those first 2 points, it was tied.
Yeah, exactly. And I'm curious how that's going to shape up in a map like Circle Royale and how that's really going to change up, because we talk about this all the time, how this is one of the maps that plays differently from most of what we really see here in Overwatch. It is one of those things where, honestly, it feels like before, it was like, hey, you have to play Poke here, you gotta play Sig, you gotta play Widow, you gotta play, Bap Zen, but now we're in an era where it feels like most comps can actually work here, and you just have to simply change up where and how you play to do so. You'll see teams that want to play Brawl and want to play close, so they'll commit hard to that first corner with the little inside room. Some really do go down that poke route and are a little more willing to kind of give up a bit of space to have those bigger and longer lanes to be able to shoot down and get effectiveness from. So it's certainly going to be a question of how Factor X is going to develop. I think they're a lot stronger when they are in that close-up game like that. So I'm just curious to see how they're going to pull it off here on a map like this.
Well, if you're Factor X, you're at least on the defensive side first, it looks like. And I think, especially going into this map, the fact that you're seeing leaders actually give them defense is great for Factor X, because you could just have a really strong defense here on first point and really just restart yourself in this series. And I think that's what they're looking for here. But the fact we're seeing leaders decide to take offense first, it shows you they have a lot of faith in themselves. They have all this momentum. Why not play into it? If you know that Factor X is struggling at the moment, make sure you can keep that pressure on them. However, coming out of the gate, no big shocks from me. Maybe Jodello on the Pharah is the biggest one right now for the side of Factor X. Outside of that, everything else kind of seems pretty normal for this competition that they normally run on this map. The other side, though, Love on the Widow, I feel like it's maybe a one-life thing, and they're swapping off. But Rainy Day, we saw them play May a decent amount last map. They played it really well. Hot Babe and Still Kiwi. Hunter, this is a support line we don't normally see that often. But this is a support line that, especially on this map, could find a lot of value. I don't think it finds that much value on offense. Defense, though, it might be able to really destroy.
It honestly might, and I'm curious to see if that's going to be the case, because it's a unique one, because this is not one that really plays to a lot of sustainability and consistency, because they can definitely have a fair amount of healing, but they're not heroes that are really great at holding their own when it comes to these 1v1 situations. If there's a scenario Romani does push really hard, Hot Babe really only has that sleeve. Still Kiwi is just going to have to try to kick them away and pray to God someone can get there in time. But wall has been expended. Going to be putting Romani in a bit of a rough situation, but going to be able to survive. But an anti thrown in their face. They're going to fall. And Niana, for the moment, working out beautifully.
you almost need a Kiriko here for Factor X to really make sure that Ramai's gonna be able to stay alive throughout. But Dello finding out Connie there is huge, and then Petal finds Rainy Day and Hunter. Factor X has this cart in the perfect spot with this lineup. Steel Kiwi will fall. On honestly 44% to a Transcendence, I feel like this is a point where maybe you make the swap here off of the Zen. I just don't think you're necessarily going to be ending up finding that much value with it, but looks like they're going to stick with it. Other than that, Rainy Day, no more May. Over to the Echo. Hunter, I feel like it's been a while since we've seen Echo be played.
Yeah, it's definitely one of the more rare picks. I still think it has a certain level of viability, but it feels like it's so rare because we live in the game where things like the Freya, like the Cassie, like the Sojourn are so incredibly strong to where Echo just doesn't really have that scenario where they can be super viable. You can see already kind of struggling to do anything as Petal going to snipe down Love there using the overclock. Still Kiwi eventually be taken out by Jodello, and Petal gets pressed momentarily, but not going to go anywhere. As for Romani and the rest of this Factor X team, I mean, this is a start that you were praying for.
Yeah, it really was. I mean, like I said, I feel like it was very weird for leaders to give Factor X the defensive side. I just felt like you should always try to pick defensive side yourself. But they have momentum, so going aggressive, not necessarily the worst thing. Steel Kiwi, though, they're going to have Transcendence ready to go this fight, especially with Hot Babe not that far away from Nano, Connie, Love, and Rainy Day, decently close to their own ultimates. I mean, you could see a big ult dump here from leaders because they know they're going to have the slight advantage with that overclock already up on the other side, and hey, Jodel's off the field as well.
Yeah, and you want to try to find one more to really try to cement this out. Lots of bodies being thrown in. Love about to get to their overclock. Whether or not it's going to be needed is a different question, but instead they're going to invest the double support ultimates. And this could genuinely go either way, but now they have to try to sustain through that Transcendence. Keep Romani alive, try to hang around. Terror Surge activated. Rough scenario is Rainy Day gets super low, but WebTube looks away and tries to take care of WebTube instead. So now Rainy Day gets to live for a few extra seconds, but inevitably gets taken out. His squad going to move in. Connie forced back and is barely going to get out of here alive.
Yeah, right now this fallback from leaders, I love it. They have 2-3 ultimates coming up here. The only thing that Factor X is going to have is going to be this barrage from Jodello. And they need to be able to find 1 or 2 with it, probably even cancel out ultimate from the other side, but they're going to struggle with that. I mean, you're walking into an overclock which should shut them down, and there it is. Petal, though, already gone, Hunter.
Yeah, Romani is in no man's land. Jodello is going to trade out, but at the end of the day, it is not going to be enough. This is all but confirmed. His leader's going to move on from this first point. Credit to Factor X, though. They make them more for it. They make him take a long time, but still, that's a lot of ultimates setting a line for leaders.
I want to see Factor X kind of make a change to this backline. I really do, especially with Hot Babe just having so much value coming from those Bionades. I feel like not having something that can cleanse like that Kiriko is just a little surprising. But these teams, I mean, BAF has normally been the way to go. However, Rainy Day using that dupe here early on onto the Soj.
Yeah, 100%. That Nano trying to work wonders as Rainy Day is hit with the copy Nano. Not something you typically see, quite frankly, as unfortunately it's not going to end up getting a whole lot here as it's Petal's turn to try to make something happen. Is definitely getting the shots, but nobody has gone down quite yet. Connie, unfortunately, hard separated right there as the aggression continues on. Still, Kiwi ends up going down, so once again, going to be a good fight here for Factor X as Love does find WebTube on the way on. Hot Babe actually gets LCS too, so a couple of good picks, so if they can regroup quickly, they might be able to do something with this, but honestly, probably not.
No, probably not. I mean, WebTube's going to be able to get that speed ring coming out, spawning at LCS, and themselves back to this cart really quickly. And, I mean, you could have tried to go fast if you were leaders, but you only truly had the Annihilation and the Transcendence, which, I mean, got played out last time we saw and didn't necessarily find much value here. However, I mean, right now, I feel like Factor X is in a good spot here. You're coming up with the 4 ultimates. Yeah, you have to deal with 2 strong ones on the other side, but you can easily kite them out.
Yeah, lots of damage being thrown into Jodello, getting close to a pulse bomb as well. Romani, he's going to get run down, but immediately going to be a response from both supports here, as they pretty much have to both kind of give up what they were trying to do momentarily. They get themselves going. Terror Surge activated. Rough scenario annihilation used directly back. Romani has to literally drop just to live, and they're going to go for the full-on chase. Gets super low, and eventually will get taken out. Rally has been used to keep Connie further at bay. Is super low, but has the ability to go back into that Nemesis form, but it's not going to be needed, as the rest of Factor X need to reset for another touch.
There's a big misplay that happened in that fight there with the usage of the Orbital Ray. That Orbital Ray needed to be used to cancel out the Annihilation from Connie. I understand they wanted to play faster and try to win a team fight, but it ended up not working out for them. And now you're barely going to be able to get touch here, but you have no ultimates coming up here.
Oh, yeah, and Romani super low. Gonna get deleted. And Hot Babe sends it over to Still Kiwi. And now with only half a meter to go, it should just be the cleanup squad coming through. Sports being taken care of, so now 2 minutes on the clock here. Leaders going to move forward. I mean, the bright side is that the way the alt economy is, I would say they're relatively even as Jordella goes over to the Genji now.
I like the swap over to Genji, but right now I'm still looking at that support line.
Yeah.
Like, Orbital Ray is the most valuable thing that you're really getting from WebTube right now, but it's not something that you're getting often. However, this pincer maneuver here, winning a team fight early for Factor X, is exactly what you need as Connie jumping onto the racetrack.
Yeah, now Still Kiwi realizes, nope, I'm not here. I'm not paid enough to stand on that card. Is Rainy Day going to try to escape? Looks like they're going to be able to, as that's a little bit more charge for Still Kiwi. You got to wonder if this is going to stay after this Transcendence gets used.
I mean, it's been working for them so far, so I don't see a reason why they wouldn't get rid of it. But, I mean, you're coming up to a couple ultimates, but you're going to be able to get rid of one here early on, and this is exactly what you need if you're Factor X. Win 2 dominant team fights in a row. Eat that time bank down.
Exactly. This is play exactly into the hand that they want. Ultimates, though, coming online for both sides. The DPS ultimates have been having a lot of effectiveness for leaders as well. Rainy Day has been a menace so far when it comes to that venture, so I'm excited to see if they can pull anything off here as they're kind of hanging around and waiting for an opportunity, but Petal knows they're hanging around as they're going to go to the high ground and try to make something happen, but Love is the first to go on and activate with their overclock. Rainy Day going to hope to kind of push them together, and it's working out beautifully as they're being delayed. Romani gets one, but that is the extent as WebTube just has to run for their life.
And I think the worst part about that entire fight right there for Factor X is, yeah, you didn't invest in the ultimates, you got 2 out from the other side, but look at what Leader still has here. Nano, Annihilation, Transcendence. Yeah, you're about to come up to 4, but a Nano Annihilation is going to be really scary, and then Steel Kiwi can just use that Transcendence to make sure Connie is just able to walk forward no matter what.
And you're seeing Petal go behind here, runs directly into Love, not the person you ideally want, but WebTube is going to invest super hard right here. Rainy Day does go down first, though, so it's playing further and further into their favor. It's kind of going to get separated. Everything thrown into the face, but kind of going to stay through full health throughout this entire exchange, but inevitably is going to have to pop his ultimate. But there's just so much damage, so much being thrown into the face, so Jello is going to help finish it off with a little bit of the Blade magic. Its leader's going to be stopped here just before the end, and now Factor X, for the first time in the series, really do see I'll say the finish line before them.
Yeah, I mean, you can definitely win this map. You stopped in a decent spot. I mean, yeah, you would love to not have them push as far as they did, but you were able to stop them. One good thing that Factor X did that entire round was they were able to win fights on every point. They slowed them down. It wasn't just casually going through for both these sides, or for leaders there. However, what is Factor X going to do here on the offensive side? I mean, they played varying different comps throughout that entire round, or DPS lines. I really thought they should have been changing up their support line, but it ended up working out for them in the end. LCS on the Brig, I don't think was necessarily the problem. Like I said, I thought they really needed a Kiri just to clean up a lot, especially with how much value Hot Babe was fine, but Steel Kiwi coming out on the Lifeweaver. And Hunter, this is one of these maps in particular where Lifeweaver has value, a decent amount of value. Tree is really strong, especially on this first point, and Rainy Day on the May is going to make Romani's life a living hell. One good thing, though, here, if you're Factor X, we're seeing Freya for the first time tonight. And that high burst damage potential coming out now from them is going to be huge. And with no, like, get out of jail free card other than maybe Grasp from Steel Kiwi on that support line, you could really punish these supports here if you're Factor X.
Yeah, you 100% could in the situation, and Petal has been able to play in the past, be relatively consistent with it as well. So I'm going to see how it is going to go down. Jordella back over on that far that had a little bit of staying power previously. I eventually did have to hit the swap on it, but it's going to make it hard for leaders to kind of hang around this initial open area, but Jordella still has to play careful.
They really do. The Pharah is very interesting. You have 2 high burst damage DPS players here. You don't normally see it a lot, but it could be something that really does affect how leaders want to play this, especially that backline. Again, one take aim shot and one rocket direct hit might just be enough to kill one of them.
Yeah, you're looking for the spin in that wall to be able to get you through right there. You want to hopefully cut off Connie as soon as humanly possible, getting pushed back further and further into the chaos, eventually going to get pulled away. That's what happens when you have a Life Weaver on your team like that, but now Connie in the squad is being pushed back further and further. Omani getting super low, though, is going to have to use a lot to stay alive as Petal pushed back harder and harder, getting super low, trying to move forward with the Nemesis farm. With Omani going down, the rest of Factor X unfortunately has to back up.
They are running away. Petal might not be able to escape here. But they're being healed up a decent amount by the support line here. And doing a good job of Connie actually being forced to fall back here. Without having to use Nemesis form, they might have been in trouble there. But right now, Ultimate's coming up online. You're about to see 4 really here for leaders, which it wouldn't surprise me if they kind of just dump 3 of them into this fight. I mean, yeah. Already almost half the time bank gone here, and while Factor X is going to have 3 of their own, not having the Terror Surge here is really going to affect probably a lot how they play.
Yeah, bubble shot thrown in. It's going to be a bit of a weird trade as Free's going to go in. Not catching into anybody in particular as Romani going to start moving forward, hoping to find another on top of this. Romani is going to start suffering, though, because they lose out on Jodello, and Love is just going to keep popping and popping away as Romani LCS honestly might not even make it out of here.
I think they'll be safe.
Yeah.
Petal is right there going to force back that support line with Love from leaders. However, if you're Factor X, yeah, you end up losing that fight, but let's look on the bright side here. You got 4 ultimates out from the other side. You got Tree out. You got Nano out. You got Nano invested on a Steel Q, just to keep him alive in that engagement. Now you have your own Orbital, Terror Surge, and Rally coming up here. This should be your fight to win, but you need to keep Romani alive.
Barely does, and now this is where they go all out with it, and this is the right timing going to go through. Connie, rough scenario, gets deleted on the spot, but Rainy Day still wants to be able to hang around, still wants to try to make something happen, but there's no ultimates on the table. LCS still has the ability to pop the rally if they want to. It shouldn't even really be necessary, though, as this should be first point rounded out eventually. This is a little bit quicker than we had seen previously. They're going to be having about, what, like 3:40 on the clock going into this next point.
Yeah, and I mean, the fact that you found picks there really early on with that orbital ray was huge. However, Connie's going to have their Annihilation. Rain Day, not that far away from a Blizzard. The only thing you have right here for Factor X is that rally coming out from LCS. Petal, though, could build up to a Bola shot pretty quickly. We know how fast Freya does build up that. Jodello now going over to the Genji, especially for the second point. I like the swap. You want to get up onto this high ground very quickly, and Genji is perfect just for that.
Yeah, 100% is nice wall directly onto Romani, who's trying to break back through as Jodello, bit of a weird scenario, but Connie not willing to drop off the top rope to be able to take care of it, but Annihilation apparently is more in the bank as everything is thrown directly at the face of Connie. But yet they still live. Even a freeze is thrown into the scenario. LCS going to get frozen away, will get deleted in time, and unfortunately, while it does go back and forth, we are eventually going to see Factor X fall over.
But I think you're okay with that. You got rid of Blizzard, you got rid of Annihilation on the other side. I mean, those are 2 fight-winning ultimates on their own that are invested in that one there. You're okay with that. For the cost of a rally, I think you like that if you're Factor X. Factor X, though, you're going to have another Orbital, going to have that Terror Surge ready to go here soon, and hey, you get rid of the Ice Devil herself here to start off the fight.
Yeah, and now you can back up with getting Connie still alive. Connie's still kind of hanging around in there, which honestly, I think to a degree can be questionable. You do have teleports around the corner, but you need to use Connie to stay alive long enough to be able to actually use those. But Hot Babe is going to be forced to use this orbital ray around this corner. Web 2 going to be throwing it back. Romani trying to get something on top of that, but Rainy Day has already gotten rid of Jodello. Love needs to try to find a shot here to end this one around eventually. They'll catch hold of WebTube as, I mean, Factor X are trying to hang around as best they can, but with Petal taken care of, again, they have to reset. They do get it much closer as Jodello, or I should say LCS, trying to escape, but honestly is going to get pushed. What?
Lane?
No!
Lane? No! Oh, no, no! Oh! Oh, Hunter, that might be costly. That might cost them the map here. Especially as now Leaders is rotating up to all their ultimates. You already have Rally not that far away from Blizzard Annihilation, and the closest person to an ultimate on your side is Romani now. I mean, that Blade needs to be able to get rid of the Rally from Steel QE, but instead, you invested to try to make sure LCS lives.
And I mean, high risk, high reward. Unfortunately, I mean, it's the former on that one. Rally investor, Romani just gets dumped into her, being forced out of the fight. Everyone trying to hang around. You need to just find that one straight pick that can open things around for you. But now Connie is going to have this annihilation. Rainy Day going to have the freeze. Odell separated from the rest of the squad momentarily. Does get a bit of care, but unfortunately, Romani, the person that needs to stay alive, gets taken care of. And now, coming down to 40 seconds on the clock, the way this is going to play out, this is realistically Final Fight territory.
Oh, no, it is. It definitely is. It's going to take Factor X 10, 15 seconds to get set up here for a fight. You're going to have Orbital Ray, but like you talked about, we have that double kind of ultimates on the other side with that Blizzard Annihilation that will stop Factor X dead in their track. And hey, speaking of being dead in their track.
But they're going to push really hard. They're investing really hard really early on. If you can get a Romani, great. But now WebTube is going to invest. Pedal gets super low. I don't know if I like this early investment, but to be fair, I don't really have much to complain about. It's working out beautifully. Romani completely separated, frozen away. And at the end of the day, it's going to work out beautifully. Jodello going to get the touch for the overtime. But now LCS has to race back for a touch. But ladies and gentlemen, we are already at match point. Leaders are one map away from moving on to EWC.
And I mean, right now, Leaders, they're on a different level. It really just seems like that. And you have to remember the story of this team coming in. They had to win the final week of the regular season against Pumas just to get into the playoffs. I felt like once that happened, they were given a new sense on everything, a new chance on life. And Hunter, they have not let it go. Instead, they have just continued to apply pressure to every team they played. We looked at that first round matchup against Warfist, where Warfist still ended up winning that one, but Leaders brought it to 5, and we were like, who does that look better for? Who does it look worse for? And we thought maybe Warfist might have gone up early in that series, messed around, but I feel like Leaders, they found their footing in that series. Even though they lost it, it gave them everything they needed to go through, beat Elements, beat Warfist on the run back, and now they're trying to beat Factor X here. One more step closer now, though. Factor X, I mean, this was a good map for them. It really was. It really was. That's the problem here. They just got stonewalled, and again, I feel like this time it wasn't necessarily about mistakes, just with general play. One thing I constantly highlighted throughout the entire round was I really thought that Factor X could have really benefited from a Kiriko. It wasn't banned out. BAP was banned out. I thought a Kiriko would really negate what we were seeing there from, I believe it was, I forget what the name was, but the Ana on the other side. The anti-nades were so powerful for them that entire time. And without the immortality field or a Suzu to cleanse them, you just saw Leaders, anytime it landed on the 2-3 members of Factor X, always be able to find one. And that kind of situation, that's the fight. A lot of the times with these two teams, once you lose one member, both these teams like to just back out and wait for that one to come back so they can go in at full strength. But now Leaders, Hunter, one map away from a spot in the Esports World Cup.
Yeah, and you know, a month ago, a week ago, 3 days ago,
5 days ago,
this is not how I would have guessed this to happen right here. It is not how I would have thought it would go down. But I mean, it does say something about this Leader squad, a team that by the hair of net differential made it into these playoffs. They were under 500 going into these playoffs. It's not something you really get to see in these scenarios, but it says something about the way the squad has genuinely developed over that time, because when this team has needed to step up to keep themselves alive and keep themselves going, they have done so successfully every single time. And now they took down the number 1 seed, they took down the number 2 seed, and now they are poised to take down the number 3 seed, move on to EWC, and all they have to do is win one of the next 4 maps. And even if Factor X win this one, like we were saying earlier, Control just goes entirely back into their favor with the picks and the bans.
Yeah, and it seems like they're trying to. It seems like the team are trying to get back with FACEIT, try to get everything set up there. But we do know next map will be Runasapi, which,
fair.
I mean, if you're Factor X, this has been a good map for them in the past, especially this playoff run. They've been either taken there or brought themselves there every series. And I mean, we saw it a lot. Hunter, me and you've actually seen a decent amount in South America and North America as well. It really feels like the winner of this map normally wins about the first 3.5 minutes. After that, it's 50-50 fights back and forth unless they're somehow able to get enough 50-50 fights to go their way that they complete the map. But I mean, we talked about here going into map 3. What does Factor X need to do? Because I mean, we talked about it. We thought leaders going up 3-0 might just be insurmountable for Factor X to get back into the series.
Yeah, and before I talked about the fact that they need to go back to that death ball style that I think they really played the best at. And I think Runasapi is a map they really definitely can make it happen. Problem is, again, when you're down the slow, so much leaves your control as the series keeps moving forward. But the problem is you have to do it here. You have to figure out a solution here, and you have to also kind of temper the way you use your bans as well, because you could go right out the gate and decide, hey, we don't want to deal with the Ramatra anymore. Screw that character. We don't want to deal with it anymore. You could do that, but then it becomes a problem for the next 3 maps. So it's almost a situation of, do we try to give ourselves a buffer to get rid of the Ramatra, or we think we can win without facing that and have to deal with it later and give us more time, or do we try to find the path now to get rid of it? Because then if that's the case, then you're able to move forward with the confidence of, hey, we know we can beat this comp now, and it feels like a risk either way, honestly.
Yeah, I mean, you talk about getting rid of the Ramatra. I feel like, especially for Runasapi, the Venture is probably the right way to go.
True, honestly.
For you here, it does leave Venture open for a lot of the rest of the series, and after this map, no matter what, the map pool is going to be reset.
Yeah.
So any other map could come back in. You could see a great spot for Venture, a great spot for Ramatra here. But right now, I feel like going into Runasapi, it's time for you to make one of those bans you might be holding on to. You have to. It's your series on the line. But leaders, I mean, talk about them here. We've been talking about the struggles with Factor X, but leaders, they've played a very sound series. I mean, everything from them has been very smart. They've made the swaps at the right times. They've really come out of the gate on the right comp a lot of times. I mean, they forced Factor X to make swaps before they're normally making swaps. It's just been smart picks all around from leaders. And I mean, Just Connie has been a standout to me for this team. Same thing with Steel QE. That's always a really good thing when you have a tank and one of your supports being able to be called out so much because of just how much they are bringing to the table.
Yeah, exactly. We talked about before how Kane just had some inconsistency throughout the season, but for everything we have seen since the very end of the season and now, it feels like they really have stepped up to a different game. I mean, a lot of the squad has also been doing well consistently. Hot Babe was one of those players that we really saw and that stood out early on because we saw them on the Baptiste. And honestly, I think before I potentially would have considered them the best Baptiste that we saw here in South America at the time. I don't think that'd be a reach at all to say.
No, not at all.
Love in Rainy Day, consistent in their own right, never truly had the massive standout things that we had seen previously. Honestly, from players like Petal and Jodello, who had some phenomenal games earlier on the season, earlier on in the playoffs, for that matter. But now it is leaders stepping it up to a whole different level, and as they sit here with more in that pressure kind of just going away, they still need to stay locked in, finish this last map, because Factor X is that squad where if they start to mount that comeback, it could be really difficult to stop if they find the solution.
Yeah, it could be. Momentum is a big thing. We've seen it a lot in a lot of the series here in Masters tier. It doesn't matter what region it is, whether it be EMEA, Oceanic, NA, or South America. Just having that momentum is a big thing for a lot of these teams. And once Factor X has got it in the past, they're a really hard team to get away from. But leaders right now has all the bans in the world. I mean, my bad, has all the momentum in the world. Looks like I can tell you what the bans are here, though. Factor X, they're listening to me. They're banning out the Venture here. Leaders going to be banning out the Brig, which I think is the right way to go. However, I think Factor X, you're just going to see LCS go right back over to that Lucio, which I feel like they're a little bit more comfortable on that hero to begin with. And you can go back and look at how they played on map 2, where they had 34 elims on the Lucio, which is an insane number. Yep. Sounds like, though, we're going to be heading in here soon. Runasapi will be the map. And Hunter, I know me and you are both kind of shocked that we're saying this going into it right now, that this could be our final map of this South American Masters tier season.
Yeah, it wouldn't be the way I would have expected it to go down. And if it does, this says a lot about this leader squad. And the journey that we're going to be able to talk about when they get to EWC is the bounce back, is the comeback from being a team that was close to not even getting into this. Hell, if Garfo didn't upset Pumas, they would not be here right now. But instead, that happened. They are here, and they are one map away from playing on the international stage. That is absolutely insane to talk about. But Factor X, you gotta take into account they are still in this. They get a fresh map here to go in and figure it out. The next 10 minutes could be the thing that decides if this series continues or if it comes to a brutal early halt.
Yeah, and if you Factor X, like I've been talking about after every map, that pressure is just being applied to you more and more here, especially as you keep on losing maps, and that pressure for leaders is just slowly starting to go away. You're now playing a little bit free. You're playing relaxed. You have this 3-map lead. Yeah, it's a cushion. You don't want to give it up, but you're going to start seeing maybe some plays from Factor X that you just would not expect. Rainy Day, though, on the May, I like Connie going back over to the Orisa. We saw map 1, Ramani coming out on the Ramatra. Remember how this went map 1, where it was really Connie finding a lot of the value, really forcing Ramani to make the swap over to the Orisa themselves. Jodella, though, going over to the May of their own. Something from them we really haven't seen that much, but it might be one of those times where desperate times call for desperate measures, and you need to mirror the May.
Yeah, I mean, I talked about it before that when you're in the scenario, sometimes the only thing you can do is experiment and find out what works, and Jodella getting Risoke way ahead. At least for the moment here, that investment seems to find some merit. Jodella kind of just running them down, and I think it's a scenario of, leaders being caught off guard pretty hard by this, as they're going to be able to clearly take this fight away, and not going to lose anybody either, as they're going to start moving the bot on their side.
And let's see if we see any swaps come out from the other side. Nope, doesn't seem like anything just yet. And Hunter, one thing that I talked about coming to this map when we first saw it, this has been a map that Factor X has really won in the first 3.5 minutes every time we've seen them play it. They do a really excellent job winning first fight, and normally getting checkpoint truly just off first fight. You're not going to get it here this time around, as you do see leaders coming back in, but no ultimates ready just yet. Hot Babe, though, could build up to an Ant Matrix here really soon.
Honestly, really could, as Connie just trying to hang around the side right now. Eventually, you're going to see the investment onto Connie to force them away, and literally everybody going in, but some people end up getting caught out. A bit of a trade comes through here. Love and Petal both taken away, as while the fight is being lost, Renine is going to forcibly stall them out from touching, and they're just going to try to steal this one away and just cause a big delay and stop them from getting checkpoint.
I mean, they stole it away, and especially with Connie being the person who stole it, here, you're going to try to stay alive as long as you can. Rainy Day will eventually fall, but Connie is fighting 3v1 and actually doing a good job staying alive for a decent amount here. Granted, I mean, it's probably really bad you lost your tank there to get everything going.
Yeah.
But, I mean, just with how far you were able to get away, and because it was your tank, you were able to give your teammates that time to respawn and get set back up. Ultimate, so Blizzard's going to be ready for both sides, but Petal finding Hot Babe out. There goes a lot of damage early on, and I feel like if your leaders, giving up this first checkpoint might not be the worst idea here.
I mean, you don't even get a choice, really. If you do it, you're investing a ton of stuff and not really having the viability to do anything with it. But now, the story of Runasapi, a team gets a super early cap, and now the question is how far they can push it, especially when they have 5 vaults and need to be careful not to invest them too hard too quickly. But, hey.
There's the image out from Wet 2, though.
Yeah, Connie gonna go in with the Tearzard as well. Wall gonna go up. Gil gets rid of things as Rainy Day gonna try to get the freeze, and it does come out still. But instead, it's going to be traded out. Petal has now gotten rid of 2 here. Annihilation going to be thrown, and Hot Babe uses that, and they are going to regret that choice as well. It did take 4. That is more than worth it to keep building on this lead.
Yeah, like I said, first 3.5 minutes. This is where you normally see Factor X win this map. And a lot of the times they don't complete it. They just get such a big lead that they're able to kind of, like we talked about, take these 50-50 fights. And right now, Hunter, we're 15 seconds away from that 3.5 minute mark. Overclock coming out here from Love, as you already see Factor X just backing up smartly here.
Yeah, and Love goes down. Jodella is just picking off people after people on this May. I mean, hey, this might just be the sauce that we have right now, as Factor X is just going to keep rolling on forward.
And hey, this is working out for them great. You have your own overclock coming up here from Petal, and really the only thing that Leaders has the beat. I mean, you don't necessarily want to use beat to counter out overclock, but if they keep pushing this card and finally early pick, the beat might have to be forced out.
Yeah, both balls end up being used. Petal does have the overclock ready, but Hotbabe does get rid of Web 2. But if I'm Petal, I am not investing in this fight, and alright, they do not. As eventually Factor X is going to be cleared away, but 4 minutes down, they get 115 meters right there. That is as good a start as any.
Good a start as any. They have a 114-meter lead here. Half that time bank is almost gone. You get the team kill. However, if you're Leaders, you really didn't have anything to invest in that fight. Like I talked about, they only had the beat. They're still holding on to that. Hot Babe, not that far away from Amp, and the rest of your team over 50% of their ultimates. But you could say the exact same thing about Factor X, but you lose Web too early, and that's not who you want to see fall first, especially now because they'll have those long spawns. And look at what that does to Factor X. Just completely backing out. LCS going to taxi Red 2 back in.
Yeah, unfortunately, you kind of have to, in this scenario, get them back. Play for the next fight because you have a ton of ults coming up on both sides, especially if this ends up being a longer fight as Connie going to be put back behind the wall, but they're going to use the Ant Matrix aggressively here, and Connie ends up getting rid of Jodello, and now Petal is in a really rough scenario. They keep trying to trade back and forth. Unfortunately, Factor X going to be pushed back once again here, and with these later picks onto WedTube, I mean, this checkpoint should be locked in.
Checkpoint is locked in, and I feel like those first 3.5 minutes for Factor X are kind of just being erased at the moment here. You invested a lot of ultimates in that fight. Granted, you did get 3 ultimates out from the other side, but Ray Day has their Blizzard here, which is going to probably be used pretty early on here. Probably once you do see Factor X invest into the small room.
Yeah, and, you know, you get 3 people on the freeze, and that's great. Unfortunately, it doesn't matter if you freeze 5 if you can't reach them, unfortunately, as you do bully Petal into a small room. Unfortunately, it just means Connie and Hababe are going to die late and not get the good respawns. Well, you know, Hababe might now, but Connie, it's not going to happen.
It's not going to happen for Connie, and that's going to force Leader to really just to fall back. And that's not the worst thing. Spawns being reset means all you really need to do is get 1 pick of your own, and we've seen it from the past where these teams just normally decide, like, okay, we're not necessarily going to get a fight here, just die on cart. But still, just under 4 minutes left to go on that time bank. You have 3 ultimates here if you're Factor X, so you're in a really good spot. The only thing ready for Leaders is an overclock, which we've seen either find 1 or 2 picks or get canceled out almost 1 second after it gets popped.
Yeah, exactly. And now you're going to be more than happy to kind of hang around if you are this Factor X squad. Because at the end of the day, I mean, you're playing with house time. You want to be able to do what you can as Beak going to be invested. Spin from Connie, forcing everybody in a weird area, but Freeze going to be invested way in the backline, trying to catch the members. Love, though, is going to find the first connection. Petal going to be able to trade directly back. And with no tanks in the fight, it comes down to these DPS to really hang around and find the necessary picks. So Jello is forced into a weird corner, but Rainy Day is actually the person to go down first and foremost, as this is becoming a little bit scary here, as Factor X doing a really good job holding on.
Factor X right now, they're really just trying to get these forward spawns back here because Romani's back into the fight. Same thing with Connie. They both have their ultimates ready to go here, but you lose Petal early on. However, Hunter, this is a point where I could really see Factor X maybe trying to invest an ultimate into this fight, just drag one out from the other side.
Exactly. Jodel's on a bit of a weird spot, but the wall is going to be expanded. Connie's going to go ahead and let loose with the Terror Surge. Nobody ends up going down somehow, as the Vesta from Romani gets frozen away, unfortunately. While Love does get traded away, it is far more devastating to lose out on your Macho right there, as Connie and Hot Babe going to find some supports of their own, as Petal and Jodel have been taken down. Spawn's going to be taken away, so nobody except for Jodel realistically up there.
And right now, I mean, you're seeing it here. Romani going over to the Orisa now. They are realizing they cannot keep up this battle with the Ramatra. And I think it's the right time to do it. Forward spawns, though, back in control here for Leaders, so you're going to be able to get them back pretty quickly. If you're Factor X, you need to win a quick team fight here and just reset the spawns. Less than 2 minutes on a time bank. It's a far walk back. However, you look at Leaders, 4 ultimates coming up, Hunter.
Yep, good wall. Jodel will be able to save LCS there, but Love has put them in a really weird scenario, but Hot Babe has been taken out, so things getting a little complicated. They're literally trying to keep everything to run down this backline. WebTube does end up getting taken down, so we're at 80+ meters now as Petal being taken out, and now for Factor X, it is not as certain as it once was.
No, it isn't. 20 meters now, the difference. That golden line of victory is right there. Romani finding Rain Day is huge, but you lose LCS.
However,
a minute and a half left to go.
They lost out on the beats. That's so bad, and now Love is there, and And if Love finds a pick, this could be devastating. Love finds one. Love goes down as a result, but now you're only a few meters away. And leaders are going to take back the lead.
A minute 7 left to go here. Factor X's playoff hopes and EWC hopes on the line here. And now you need to walk this spot all the way back to the other side of the map. You need to win a team fight, but it's going to be difficult, especially as Rainy Day and Connie, they have both their ultimates ready to go, while the only one you have ready here in the meantime for Factor X is your own Blizzard. You need to win a team fight here without really investing anything, but they want to invest first in the Blizzard. It's long-armed again.
And Hot Baben still Kiwi who have been so consistent on the supports are going to clean up house. It wouldn't surprise you if they take their sweet time getting rid of WebTube here as they're super low. And yeah, they're taking the sweet time, eventually going to take them away. And they're trying to do exactly what they did last time. Push up ahead and then back up and take a fight on the corner.
I'm honestly surprised they're pushing the spot. I really am. I thought they would just try to leave it right there because you have ultimates to play with. It would have just been something where you force Factor X in very quickly and Terror Surge Blizzard to end it. However, you're going to give them a chance here. They're not that far away from ultimates of their own. One pick for Factor X could really give them a chance here in this map, but you still have to deal with the Blizzard.
Yeah, and rough scenario to be, and LCS gets caught out. And now it's a devastating scenario. It could end up being Curtains, but it's still a 4v5. WebTube has to try to keep their squad alive. It's being forced away by Connie. All the pressure being delivered to Terror Surge. Not going to have the ability to stay alive, and they're cleaning up the house. It was the 1 seed, the 2 seed, and now it's the 3 seed as leaders are moving on to the Esports World Cup.
And just what a performance. We highlighted here coming into this map. They had to win the final week against Pumas to even make the playoffs. And the week before that, or the game before that, they needed a huge upset from Garfo to have the shot to be here. Everything fell their way. If I was them, I would go gambling because it all came up aces. Oh, welcome to the Esports World Cup, leaders.
Oh boy, that is... You've given me 10 guesses, and that would not have been the way. I would have assumed this would have come to a close here in South America, but my God, I mean, you've already said it as good as one possibly can. The journey that leaders have gone on from being that Phoenix Rising team that barely got through, and now rebranding now as leaders, they're going to be able to move on to EWC to go up against some of the greatest teams in the world. And that is not an opportunity that South America has really gotten, I mean, realistically, since 2 years ago with the World Cup. And even then, you know, it's not a scenario where every team gets to go and compete in those situations right there. So to have a South American team have this representation, it is a beautiful, beautiful thing.
Yeah, and it's incredibly beautiful. And their story is going to be one that is, I hope, gets highlighted at EWC. I really do, because Hunter, they, like we said coming into this one, they only won 3 games in the regular season. They won against Criminal Database, and I think the only game that team actually played. They won against Garfo, and they won against Pumas in that last week of the regular season. Lost to Warfist in a close map 5 in round 1 of the playoffs. But then after that, they never looked back. Beat Elements 3-1, beat Warfist on the run back, I believe 3-1, and now sweep Factor X. Just an insane run here. I mean, this South American region, me and you have really fallen in love with it. Ever since CGL, we followed Copa America, and we followed it through and through because we generally loved the players. We generally loved everything we were seeing from them. We saw the differences in compositions here outside of the rest of the world. It was so unique. It was so fun to watch. But like you said, you gave us 10 guesses coming into the playoffs who would end up probably coming out on top. I feel like the last one we would have said would have been this leader squad, and they proved us wrong through and through. This team deserves it. Congratulations to them. And I am really looking forward to seeing them play in EWC.
I'm extremely looking forward to it as well. I'm curious to see how well they end up doing, because obviously we don't know what the groups are going to be beforehand. I don't think we're going to know properly until we get to that last chance qualifier territory here within a couple of weeks. But I'm excited to see what ends up going down, because just to have them represented on the international stage like that, it is a wonderful thing. But with that being the case, all the love still goes to Factor X. Had a great season, got to the grand finals. we've been able to see these players throughout the entirety of the season, how they have developed. And while it is not the greatest way to go out, they should be incredibly proud of the season that they have had, how hard that they have played, the big wins that they have had, and the fact that hopefully we get to see this team and a lot of these players back for the next season. Because, with these teams that have gotten through in that top four, they will maintain their spots in the Masters Division. So hopefully we get to see them all once more.
Yeah, and I mean, one thing with this Factor X team, I mean, this was a really fun team to watch.
Yes.
One of our most streamed teams in the South American region, just because of how they played.
Mm-hmm.
They played very aggressive and normally ended up working out for them. They were just a very fun team to watch. And I mean, I've been able to cast some of these players outside of this in other leagues. And I know how much this is going to crush them to get this close, but end up coming up in this fashion, being swept. They probably didn't plan for this. They probably didn't expect it. They had opportunities on all the maps. Let's be honest. This was not a one-sided affair at any point. At any point this series. The 4-0 scoreline at the end of the day does not tell the story of how close this series really was. But that, and with saying that, you really have to get up the leaders. I mean, a lot of times in these back and forth series that are like this, where they're really close, normally you'll see a team give up a map here and there and maybe have it be tied going into this point. But leaders, they were able to find ways to really disrupt everything that Factor X wanted to do this series. I mean, their entire lineup that we saw here tonight never made any swaps. They played a very, very smart play throughout. I mean, that support line is just really fun to watch. Very flexible. Tank line as well. Incredibly flexible. And that DPS line, we saw them play many different compositions throughout the night, Hunter. And I feel like if they get the right opponent in their group, they could find themselves really coming out on top in some of these seasons. I feel like this leaders team, if you look at their regular season schedule and you look at their placements or their record, I feel like there's going to be a lot of teams that overlook this leaders team. This leaders team, though, throughout this playoff run, I felt like they found their identity, found themselves, and now they're going to go to the world stage, which is going to be something incredibly exciting to watch.
It is incredibly exciting, and I'm happy that anybody from the South America region is just going to have this opportunity at all. But with that being the case, obviously EWC still quite a few weeks away, and with that being the case, that will realistically do it for our coverage of FACEIT League for the remainder of the season. There is still some stuff with the expert and advanced divisions of North American EMEA, but in all fairness, it's not something that we are as familiar with as some of the other people that have been doing a great job covering over the past couple of months. Definitely deserve for them to be able to have their own time, take their own knowledge, and do that to the best of their ability while we sit here and basically, I'll say probably prep for the next season. We got a lot of things coming up as well, as things are going to pick back up in the, Overwatch esports world. But sincerely, we want to thank all of y'all for coming out, whether this is your first time, whether you have been here for the past 2 months, because especially y'all that have come in from Brazil, from South America to watch, y'all have been amazing, and you have made this 10 times more fun than perhaps we thought it really could have been. So sincerely, thank all of you for all the support you have thrown our way and everything you have given. But Dex, if you have anything else you'd like to add, this is definitely the chance.
Yeah, and one more thing. Huge shout out to William Mundy and Senju Corp.
Yes.
They really worked with us a lot throughout this season to make sure that we were getting the correct times to cast these games. Thank you so much to them, because without them, I feel like there would be a lot of times where we would miss some incredible games that we got on. So thank you so much to William Mundy and Senju Corp for putting this all together. It was an incredible thing. And like you said, Hunter, I cannot wait for the next season to get started, because I feel like we're going to see some teams come back very, very hungry to try to prove themselves here in the South American region.
Yep, I'm 100% excited and ready to cover it next season, but it's going to be a bit of a break until that happens. So sincerely, one more time, thank all of y'all for joining us here, and we hope to see you back for the next season of FACEIT League. Have a good night.